Picture this. You're lying in bed. You've got your phone in your hand, and your thumb is already moving, swiping up before your brain has even consciously given the command to do it. Now I want you to think about that tiny gap. Maybe it's just 4 seconds between one video ending and the next one loading up. In that fleeting, tiny gap, something inside you flinches. You feel this sudden, tiny spike of unease. Well, that flinch, that exact sensation, that is boredom. And welcome to this explainer, where we're going to look at why you, and really anyone alive right now, are likely among the very last humans who will ever fully experience it. Because every generation after yours, they're going to have an algorithm that finishes the job of filling that gap before it ever even has a chance to open.
90. It is an absolutely striking statistic. The average smartphone user unlocks their phone over 90 times a single day. But you know what's truly fascinating about this data isn't just the sheer volume of unlocks. It's the trigger behind them. Most of these unlocks are triggered by moments of unfilled attention that last less than 5 seconds. Less than 5 seconds of silence or stillness, and our modern reflex is just to immediately reach for a screen to bridge that void.
Notice the stark emptiness here. All of this massive negative space, that visually represents your unoccupied mind. I'm actually going to pause for exactly 4 seconds right now, just to let you physically feel what it's like to sit in that empty space. Let's try it. Right there. Did you feel that slight itch, that tiny flinch of restlessness? That is the 4-second gap. And it's the exact feeling we instinctively try to crush by loading a new video or refreshing a feed. Okay, let's dive into this because it is so incredibly tempting to think of boredom as just a modern glitch, right? Like a symptom of a world that's just moving way too fast. But Dr. John Eastwood's research at York University completely changed how science views this. He led this massive effort to define boredom precisely. He called it the aversive state of wanting but being unable to engage in satisfying activity. This reframes the whole thing. Boredom is not just nothing happening or an absence of stimulation, it's a literal state of distress generated when your attention system actively tries to latch onto something, completely fails, and sets off an internal alarm. And that brings us to a really profound realization. This distress, it has a purpose. Boredom is not a glitch at all. It's a highly specific, evolutionarily engineered signal. It's an ancient alarm system built right into your hardware. And it's just as old and honestly just as load-bearing for human survival as physical pain or hunger. Think about it. Just as hunger tells you to eat so you don't starve, boredom is an alarm bell literally designed to force you to take action. Philosopher of mind Dr. Andreas Elpidoro frames this so beautifully. He calls boredom an emotional nudge to end a low-value activity and search for a higher-value one. Because without this specific regulatory emotion, an organism would just persist in whatever unproductive task it happened to be doing, forever. Why? Well, because without boredom, nothing would ever feel wrong enough to interrupt them. So boredom isn't the opposite of interest. It's actually the catalyst for it. Let's look at how this played out for our ancestors. For human foragers, survival literally depended on constant environmental sampling. They didn't have guaranteed food supplies or supermarkets down the street. We can call this the exploration algorithm. They had to test new berries, track unfamiliar animal trails, and wander further than they did the day before. Anthropologists note that hunter-gatherer groups moved camp locations every few weeks or months. A well-fed forager sitting completely still in apparent safety was actually in danger because they were totally blind to a changing environment. Boredom was the internal alarm clock that prevented fatal complacency. It's what pushed them out of the cave and over the ridge. But let's look at how this ancient hardware adapted to our modern minds. Education researcher Dr. Teresa Belton found that this survival mechanism actually evolved. It didn't just stay an alarm for physical exploration, it became an alarm for cognitive exploration. When she studied the childhoods of highly creative writers, artists, and scientists, she found a crystal clear pattern. Their most original ideas emerged directly out of periods of profound boredom. When a child has an unoccupied mind, completely devoid of external entertainment, they are literally forced to generate their own stimulation. They create original ideas because their brain is desperately searching for that higher value activity. But here is the massive, counterintuitive twist. Notice how chaotic and dense things just got? The very thing boredom evolved to detect, an environment with nothing new in it, has essentially been engineered out of existence.
We are caught in the infinite scroll trap. Modern feeds are explicitly designed by engineers to ensure that the 4-second gap we experienced earlier never, ever opens. The exact second that ancient alarm starts to sound, the screen just fills the void. Now, to understand why this is so remarkably effective, we have to look back to the 1950s and the work of psychologist B.F. Skinner. Through his research on operant conditioning using pigeons, Skinner discovered the absolute magnetic power of intermittent reinforcement. He found that rewards delivered unpredictably, rather than on a fixed, reliable schedule, produced the most persistent, hardest to extinguish behavior of any pattern he ever tested. What's truly fascinating and maybe a little terrifying is how these variable ratio rewards map directly onto your daily life right now. An unpredictable delivery schedule creating persistent behavior, this is structurally identical to the mechanics driving the infinite scroll algorithms on our phones today. Every single time you scroll, you're essentially pulling a slot machine lever. You're getting an unpredictable reward that totally hijacks your brain's natural exploration algorithm.
So, we are caught in this tragic dichotomy. On one hand, we have ancestral novelty, that ancient alarm of boredom pushing humans toward genuine discovery, migration, invention, and art. And on the other hand, we have algorithmic novelty. Today, that exact same alarm is being instantly soothed by a feed that offers the illusion of novelty, but is actually just a small set of recycled patterns deliberately engineered by tech companies to maximize your watch time, not to promote any kind of genuine discovery. What this all boils down to is that your ancient alarm is just not being answered anymore. It's a muted alarm. It is silenced before it can even fully sound. Just think about your own daily habits for a second. That low hum of unease you feel the very second your computer screen goes to sleep, or when you're just waiting in line for coffee, or right when your TV show ends. That reflex to check something, anything, before boredom can fully form, that is your evolutionary hardware trying to do its job, and you instantly muting it with your phone. The stakes here are incredibly high, especially when we look at the next generation. We're looking at shrinking gaps. Children today are growing up in digital environments where that 4-second gap of unstructured, unfilled time may functionally never open for them. If Dr. Belton's research is right that boredom feeds cognitive creativity, and Dr. Elpidoro is right that it exists to redirect us to meaningful tasks, well then a world without this gap quietly narrows what these children might create, explore, and ultimately become. And the crazy part? It's happening simply by removing a feeling that we usually try to avoid anyway. So as we return to this stark, empty space, I want to leave you with a pretty massive question. Are you the last generation to ever fully feel boredom? The next time you're lying in bed and your thumb moves to unlock your screen before your brain has even given the command, try to stop. Just for a moment. Notice that half second of nothingness just before the screen lights up. That flicker isn't some modern annoyance. It is hundreds of thousands of years of evolutionary machinery trying to guide you. It's a vital human experience, and as we've explored today, it's quietly being engineered out of existence. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and next time you feel that flinch, maybe just let it happen.